The other one is probably not doing enough upskilling myself earlier on, because I'd have got to where I am now a lot quicker. I was very patient, very driven, and was figuring stuff out along the way, but didn't take a little bit of time out to develop my own awareness skills and things like that. And in the last sort of 4 or 5 years in particular, I've really been able to expose myself to some brilliant people, yourselves included, who've taught me so many things. So I think to earlier on to spend a little bit more time studying, I regret not doing that. The only flip side to that is without the experience and without the need, which comes back to where we started, the reason I didn't do it was I had all the creative ideas, but I didn't have the business knowledge. So I was what you might call an unconscious incompetent. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff Lakusta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia, Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Nadia. Great to see you.
I am so excited to see you. It's been a few weeks and I missed you.
You too. I've got a nice little henna tattoo from a Hindu wedding that I just went to, which was super, super fun, but a first experience and had a blast with some friends.
That's wonderful. I've never been to a full Hindu wedding. I went to a mixed Western Hindu and they did a mixed ceremony, but it's so wonderful that you got all the paint.
It was awesome. We had a great time.
Did they have chanting and kirtan music?
Oh, yeah, of course. There was a lot of dancing. We participated and had prepared a few of them and a flash mob, and there was a DJ and a truck as we paraded down the streets of Toronto to the ceremony, which was pretty fun. Definitely a different experience than your average Western wedding.
Beautiful. And what were you wearing? I know the dresses are part of the wedding in itself.
We did have some traditional garb for the Sangeet, which was the night before the ceremony. And then we wore a suit for the actual ceremony itself. But yeah, just kind of mixing it up. And I know you had some time away as well. Tell me what you were up to.
Oh, we went to Puerto Rico for a couple of days with another couple and their kids. And this was our first time in Puerto Rico. And I will say something very relevant to our podcast. In my morning walks, I was waking up at 5:30 to go see the sunrise and meditate and reconnect with my inner spirit and create spaciousness. And when I was walking, looking at seashells, a woman stopped me to donate me a beautiful seashell. And we started talking and she said, I'm the general manager of all this large resort. And I said, wow, your job must be very difficult. I invited her on 99 Humans.
Nice.
We'll see. She said yes. But it was so beautiful because she was telling me about working all over the world and changing jobs every 2 years and moving from one resort to the other. And I'll tell you, Jeff, when I thought about her job and the complexity about managing such a structure, like with all the responsibilities, I was literally amazed. And I asked her, I said, oh, you wake up really early to go and do these walks? And she said, Nadia, this is my only moment of spaciousness that I can have.
Wow.
And I do it so that I can be a better leader.
The job is complex, and it's funny. I mean, so we're trying to unpack the humanity of leadership. I would guess that job doesn't always see the best of people as well, and the stress of dealing with their customers and clientele. I bet she's got some stories. I hope she does come on.
Oh my God, I need to follow up and ask her. Pete!
Hello, how you doing?
Hello.
I am so excited.
Pete, I'm Jeff.
Long time no see, Nadia. Good to meet you, Jeff.
Thank you so much for coming on. We're really excited for this conversation.
Oh
Very,
dear, I hope I
very
don't let you down.
Pete, based on the 40 minutes conversation I had with you one time, it would be pretty impossible for you to let us down.
Nadia, you say all the nicest things. How are you doing?
Very well. So, Jeff, let me share a couple of things about how Pete and I met, because you might remember David, with whom we had a conversation already 2 years ago. I did love the conversation with David because we spoke about so many things, including spirituality and really great and mind-blowing activities. And then Dave introduced me to Pete, and I met Pete in the Google office. And I was amazing about what Pete is building in the world.
That's amazing. Well, Pete, do you have any, before we jump fully in, do you have any questions for us, or are you ready to rock? I know you've done quite a bit of podcasting.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far, but no, ready to answer any questions. I'll try and be as interesting as possible. Is there anything you need to tell me about things that you're particularly looking for? Do you want short answers, long answers? What type of thing that fits in with the 99 Humans brand and what you're trying to achieve?
I think just be yourself. That's our brand, basically. And we'll interrupt you. If you give really long answers, we're not shy about interrupting with questions. So forgive us for that if we
do. No problem at all.
We always start with a question, Pete, which is, what are you up these days? We want to hear what's happening in your world. Where are you? And what is keeping you busy?
Cool. Do you want to start now, or are you ready to go?
Please go. We're recording. We're in full force.
Fabulous. So I'll start by answering your question. What am I up to now? Well, actually, I'm up to the same thing I started doing about 30 years ago when I founded my business, which is an online learning business called Upskill People. And the vision then was exactly the same as it is now, and it was to help people shine. And at the time, I'd become very fascinated with how the mind works and how people learn and the impact that giving people knowledge, skills, and support can have on their daily lives in terms of their work balance. I'm still doing the same. The one thing that's probably different is it's expanded. So it wasn't just as it was originally giving people knowledge and skills they could use. It's sort of helping all sorts of people shine. So I do some charity work. I do some non-exec work. It's helping my family shine, and it's helping the people around me. So it's just one thing that stuck with me, and that's pretty much still what I do most of the time.
Pete, congratulations on the success you've had with Upskill People. We've talked to quite a few entrepreneurs, but to be honest, 30 years running in the same field with the same company, you've mentioned that it expands, but I know that this journey is not an easy one. And I'd love to kind of wind back the clock to the beginning of Upskill People. What was your vision for it then compared to what it is now?
Well, I guess it was an opportunity, and I have an unusual background. I'm not academic. I didn't go to university, but I've always had an interest in learning things. So when I left school, I ended up in a creative role in the theatre and the media side of things. Then I got a job in tech, which was very early days tech. We're talking about a very long time ago when I had hair that was the color of you guys, and it wasn't so great. And so there was an opportunity to combine the two. And I was having Sunday lunch with my father-in-law. And I said, I've come across some new stuff that solved a problem I had at work. It was a CD-ROM, if everybody can remember that far back. My daughter certainly can't remember that far back. And I said, it might take off. And so he said, well, do you want to teach yourself how to do it? And I said, yes, I'll have a go. So in my evenings and weekends, I taught myself how to do this stuff. My tech background and my creative background came in really useful. Created the first product that sold quite well. That enabled me to leave my day job. And then we landed a large client. And from that point on, we grew the business there, which I guess is what most entrepreneurs say. I was looking to solve a problem that I'd experienced in work, found a way to do that. And then lots of other people decided it would solve their problem as well. And that's how the business grew.
I'm very curious now. What was the problem?
Well, the problem was I had a really cool job in that they just said, join us, go find new stuff that will make us better and buy it, which was brilliant, really. So I had a really great time doing that. And one of the issues I had was that we had a lot of remote salespeople who at the time had all been given these newfangled laptops. You've got to bear in mind, this is 30 plus years ago. And nobody knew how to use them. Nobody knew how to use Excel or Word. And the only option was that they had to come into the office for 5 days to go on very boring courses. And they're salespeople. They were all over the country. I'm based in the UK. And they only spent 7 days a year in the office anyway. So there's no way they're going to spend 5 days sat in a classroom learning boring stuff when they'd rather be doing more interesting salesy stuff. So I bought in some CD-ROMs that somebody had told me about from the States. Goodness, they were dry and dull. And I thought, surely I can do something better than this. And that was the problem. I needed to find a better way to give them knowledge so they could do their stuff better. So I cobbled together some stuff of my own. They loved it, built a bit more. And I thought, yeah, that was the problem solved.
There's something certainly meta about the fact that your business about upskilling people started with you upskilling yourself on this new sort of technology platform available. But I'm curious, you mentioned your hook basically being a better, more engaging course for people to learn. And I know that the course and the material and your approach is a piece of this, but there must also be a piece about the other person's willingness to learn, maybe growth mindset or whatever you might call that. How do you find that mix in terms of what it takes for people to really learn something? Are companies able to say, take this course, and if the course is good enough, they'll learn no matter who's on the other side? Or is there a little bit of responsibility that's always required from the other side too?
Well, I guess we're all fairly lazy and we're all fairly busy. So unless I'm a very pragmatic person, unless something's got a real practical purpose, then I'm probably not going to do it. The other quote that gets bandied around a lot is, what gets measured gets done. So I've either got to learn something or do something because there's something in it for me, or because somebody's telling me if I don't do it, then bad stuff will happen or I won't get the good stuff. So there's no treat. So the first thing we do with everything we do is we figure out, never mind what the organization's trying to achieve, what's in it for the individual. And there's loads of variances on this. I'm sure people on the podcast have mentioned Simon Sinek and starting with why. But unless we can convince somebody this is what will happen when you've taken the time and invested the time to learn this stuff, then they're not going to do it. So that's always the first thing. We start with the individual. And so, that's the reason we all do things, is there's a positive outcome. Then beyond that, we've got to make it interesting, because none of us like sitting through presentations where they go, we're going to be in the room for 5 hours and we are on slide 1 of 197. We work on little 3-minute chunks, which I think I read something recently that the attention span these days is well sub a minute if you're lucky. So yeah, we had to do that. And one of the things one of the first ideas was, somebody showed me a diagram, and it was a sort of a line that went like that. And they said, if you're doing any piece of learning, Pete, then you've got them for 5 minutes until the point they go, oh, it's nearly at the end. And that's the last 5 minutes. So I thought, well, let's just do the 5 minutes at the start and the end. That is where we've got people's engagement. So little tiny chunks that build up to a bigger piece, and also making sure that we like sort of every 3 minutes, somebody's got to go, that's useful. And that's how we approach that type of thing. So, yeah, you've got to motivate people. Otherwise, they're ticking a box. And that, I hate that term, ticking the box, because it just means I've gone from start to end, but nothing good's happened as a result of it.
I'm guilty on wanting to tick the box very often when we need to do all these corporate trainings. I have a deadline today. I need to finish 2 of them. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it as fast as I can. I failed the final test, but they're just so daunting. But I want to switch gears for a minute, Pete, because I want to deep dive into the human behind Pete. And I know you are telling us this incredible story on how you solved the problem and all of it, which is very glossy. You could be on a magazine cover. But what I'm interested in understanding is, who were you 20 years ago, for example, when your company was already 10 years in? And what are the challenges that you had to face to be where you are today? I would assume that being an entrepreneur, you've faced your fair challenges running a business with all these employees, and you're so successful and big right now. I can't possibly believe that everything was smooth and I say unicorny and glossy. So, what are some of the challenges that you had to face to bring the business to the success that it is today?
I guess the first one, obviously, is money. There's never enough cash, is there? And we decided that we didn't want to bring investment in. That would give us control. And we've always had a view to look out many years. We didn't want the situation where we had large amounts of debt or people that were looking for a very fast return. That's just not my ethics. And the ethics of setting up the business were very important to me. So you've never got enough cash, which is in some ways good because it forces you to be creative and it forces you to be very careful. So that's the biggest challenge. And it's only relatively recently that we have enough revenue and cash reserves to enable us to do the investment that we really want to do. The second one is when you're very small, and this was a while ago when .coms and startups weren't as exciting as they are now, is attracting the right people to a relatively modest business because it's perceived as a risk. And there are limitations as to, how fast you can go. So attracting the right people and then making sure they had a really good job. That's always been a challenge, and surrounding yourself with them. And then personally for me, I love new stuff, and innovation's one of our company values. And I'm impatient. So I want everything done yesterday. And having limited resources and limited budget, you can't always get the stuff done that you need to. So I think nowadays, it's called fail fast or whichever way you look at it. But we had to do lots of little experiments and accept that some weren't going to work out. But that was all part of the good stuff, really. But yeah, those are the main challenges. Certainly, things happening as quickly as we wanted. People, as ever, are the greatest thing that you can do in any organization. People are just the thing that makes it happen. And just resources, I guess, in all sorts of areas. So yeah, those were definitely the biggest challenges at the time.
I think you're right. Those challenges resonate with anybody starting a company. They'll face those three things for sure. And I'm wondering if you can make particularly that second one real. The way you described it, I also noticed, was attract the right people. I might think of that as basically sales. I don't know if you agree with that, but in the beginning, you're selling your service to other companies. But was there a particular time that sticks out to you that you can share with us a little bit more in depth where you did overcome that challenge and, basically overcome that perceived risk of working with the little guy before you were the big proven success that you are?
Yes, I mean, the challenge really was that was finding those people. If you're a big company, you've got people banging your door down wanting to work for Google or whoever it may be. So we had to go out there and get them. And very much the way we, to this day, still find people and customers is referral. Word of mouth is so powerful. So we were very lucky that we actually did some work with a university. And so some of the lecturers, as soon as they'd placed the first person with us, they then realized that person would feed back to them just how good a place it was to work and the interesting stuff we were doing. And then all of a sudden, we'd get the best people that lecturer would recommend. So word of mouth, making sure that when they came on board, we were a good fit. And there were a couple of times, and even now, and particularly even with clients, as you say, it's sort of sales, really. I work very hard at the beginning, and the team do, to make sure we're a good fit for a client. And Nadia, you mentioned earlier about you just had to tick the box and get something done. There are times when we'll say to a customer, we understand what you're trying to achieve, but we're just not a good fit for you. And I used to do that with the people that would come along. If they were looking to progress through a big multinational company and go and work different parts of the world, we're not that type of thing. If they wanted to sit there and have an easy ride and not constantly be exposed and have to be creative and have to really push hard every day in terms of the work they did, we're not a good fit for them. What that does then is even when people move on, they tell others, and that gives us referrals. In fact, one of the very first graduates I took on pretty much 27 years ago, she moved on after a couple of years. She came back to work for me 3 years ago, and we had a really great stint working together. So that's a pretty good testament, the fact that she still had enough respect for me to come back and work with me.
That's wonderful. It brings me to this following question then, because what do you think is the main motive for people to come and work with you then?
It's going to be that there's the ability to make decisions. So we're a relatively modest team. We haven't got hundreds of people. So from my point of view, I'm not a big micromanager. I'll drill down and get involved when I can help somebody. But one, there's nowhere to hide with us. Everybody has a lot of responsibility and can make decisions. But the real key is that they can make decisions. And if we don't make mistakes, we're probably not pushing hard enough. So if you're a type of person that just wants to really have a lot of autonomy and the ability to be creative, make decisions in the knowledge that we expect some stuff to not work out as we thought, that's a real attraction that obviously you don't get with many organizations. The other thing is that we genuinely look a long way ahead. So not having a load of investors means that we can make a decision now that might not come to profit or fruition in 3, 4, or 5 years. And that long-term view has always stood us in good stead. And again, for people that enjoy that environment where they know that we're taking a decision, not just, it's a bit old-fashioned, but we've always believed in people, profit, and planet. Yeah, we're a business. We have to make profit, and we have to make enough to reinvest. But we also care very much about people. We must do, because we're trying to help them shine, but also our own people. And we care about stuff that's relevant to the planet, which has taken on a much broader meaning now with all the various things that as a business you should really consider. So we're very much about culture. Trust is massive. People trust one another. I hate politics. I've worked in corporates before, and I see it in some clients. I hate that corporate politics. I just like a really supportive environment. And as I say, not to be frightened to have a go at stuff. So creative, responsible, committed and trustworthy people, that's everything for me. So if it's that kind of person, that's going to work well within our team.
I love that. Pete, we kind of transitioned naturally into some of your personal successes as a people leader, the culture that you create, that testament that you mentioned. That's amazing. All those years later, and they still want to come work for you. I agree. What an amazing thing you should feel proud of. But what I find sometimes most difficult, it's also the best thing about being a people leader, is we're all kind of going through this for the first time. And our successes and our failures really impact people. And that's what makes it hard, because when we learn a lesson, maybe we didn't do the right thing and something bad happened to an actual human being as a leader. That can be a growth story, but it makes the job, in quotes, sometimes very hard. So I'm wondering, on the back of some of the successes as a people leader, what failures might you be willing to share with us about your own leadership journey of growing this company, where you look back and go, gosh, I really learned something there. I would have done it differently.
I tell you what, we haven't got long enough to cover them all, but I've made lots of mistakes.
Me too.
Well, where to start? Yeah, I mean, I guess there's some really silly ones, like recruiting people that are like you. That's a real obvious one that you learn very early on, that you tend to gravitate towards people that are like you. And they're not always the right person for the role. You might have a lot of fun with them, but maybe that's one area. So being a lot more inquisitive and curious, and also taking a step back when finding the right people that are going to fit in a role. That's the first one. From my point of view, in terms of leadership, I've not always been the best listener. And it's very true. You've got two of these flappy things here, and you've got sort of one of those. And it's taken me many years to learn to use the two big flappy ones a little bit more. So that's another one in terms of leadership. And if you don't listen, you miss out on all the good ideas, especially when you've got those people that you're working with who aren't naturally very talkative. So that's another big thing I've learned over the years. In terms of giving people opportunity, then I think it's also the tendency to think that you have to make decisions and you can't let other people make decisions. So again, giving more autonomy and letting people just have a go and fail. It doesn't matter. My job's always be to allow people to sort of fly, but just to be around if they fall down from the sky and you catch them. So they might have a little fall, but they don't land and hurt themselves. And I think those are probably the top three for me, is just changing that style, being adaptive, and allowing each individual to shine, to come back to our vision, really. Does that answer your question well enough?
It does, yeah. I mean, I think I'm curious to unpack maybe one of those a little bit more, but Nadia, I see you maybe going the same direction.
Well, I mean, it goes along the line of unpacking, and I want to dwell a little bit on the mistakes part, because allow me to be a little bit, I don't know if it's the word provocative or challenging. It seems like it's very easy, Pete, to say, I'm going to allow people to make mistakes, and everyone wants to be that manager and that leader that says people can fly, they can do mistakes and get along with it. The reality is that often companies are not okay with people making mistakes, and often systems are not built for people to recover from their mistakes and going back and doing work. And we all say it's in everyone's values nowadays. But I'm wondering how you went specifically about this point. Have you ever witnessed someone making mistakes, and you being the founder of the company, how did that land with you? Because, I mean, isn't it frustrating when someone is making mistakes with your own baby? And how do you recover from it? How do you get trust back? So what is one mistake that you have witnessed that maybe tested your temperament?
I think there's probably two sides to it for me. And again, I've learned this over the years and often been bad at both elements. The first is coaching is a real skill, and I don't have it. But the part of it that's really important is you don't just leave somebody on their own if they don't have the skills or access to expertise in order to make a judgment where, even if it is a mistake, it's not a really bad one. So if you just say, you go off over there for 3 months and here's some budget and resource, do whatever you think, that's a wrong thing, because again, some people are terrified in that situation. So what you need to do is you need to be very clear on the objectives, very clear on timescales, very clear on the measure. And again, that's something that is often really clear, I think, in my head, but the mouth does not always articulate it. So the first thing is, before they're going to head off and try something that's breaking new ground or unknown, you've got to do everything you can to make it clear what the outcomes are that we're looking for, and maybe a little bit about the process. So that's the before bit. And I've always done that badly. And I've learned over the years that although I've got frustrated at the end when somebody has maybe not done something I thought they understood, you've got to seek clarity all the time, and the fact that you've explained things correctly. I'm terrible. I have this creative idea. We have a discussion. Lots of people throw more ideas in, and we all agree it's a brilliant thing. In my head, it's done, but it's not. There's a whole process you've then got to go through to make that stuff happen. The other thing at the end then is when you've reached a milestone and little and often checking in, is really with that check-in point, is when you realize something didn't happen as you'd like, or somebody's been a wally. We've all been wallies over the time, or idiots, and we've just done silly stuff. For me, if you do it once, that's cool. It's if you do it twice. So really the latter part is when I've got frustrated, is when you go, that's the fourth time you've done that. And that's what leads to frustration. So the first step is going, something didn't go to plan. You did something that was really silly and you shouldn't have done. How can we stop that happening again? And that could be all sorts of things. It could be process. It could be knowledge. It could be training. It could be anything. But the frustration for me is if somebody does the same mistake twice and we didn't figure out a way to stop that happening. So it's the before and after bit that is the bits I've often got wrong. I'm getting better. Maybe another 10 or even 30 years, I might be good at it.
I love the before piece. Really resonates with me because it's interesting to kind of flip it on its head and look at a failure and then go, well, what maybe didn't I set clearly enough at the beginning, and looking for your own responsibility and sort of just double checking. I definitely am one of those like creative brainstormer types where a meeting with me, you'll leave with 100 ideas, but maybe nothing exactly quite clear on the other side. And that's something that I have to think about very hard is, am I setting them up for success to find their own path, to success or failure? So I think that point makes a lot of sense to me. But as a leader, you're wearing so many different hats, especially, the leader of your own company, where you're looking at the bottom line and you're trying to develop the right culture and you're trying to sell at the same time. So what if it's not clear to you exactly what success looks like? What happens when your own clarity might be clouded?
I've never lacked that, to be honest. I guess that's what you have to have, is that eternal optimism and belief that things are going to be okay. We've had things that we've had to wait 5 years for them to suddenly blossom and succeed. So I've never doubted that we were doing the right thing. And I think that's the difference. If I were doing something for the wrong reasons that didn't sit comfortably with me, that would really cloud my judgment. So for me, it's the fact that I've been ripped off. We all have, I guess. People have done bad things to me in business. They've lied, got me to do all sorts of stuff, promising things. We've all been there, I'm sure. I've never done that to anybody else. And that's important to me, that we behave with ethics and in a way that we can just be proud and say we've always done the right thing. In terms of that sort of focus and having all the hats on, it still comes back to what we set out to do, is we want to create a really great business that everybody gets something out of working here. It's tough. We work really hard. We're a small business, so you do. But at the end of the day, everybody's going after that particular goal. That be a mixture of personal development goals, their area of responsibility, and also what we're trying to achieve with the business. So that sort of vision and drive and motivation has never been clouded in my head. We've always been here to do one thing and do it to the best of our ability that we're proud of. And that's really what's kept me on track, if that answers that question. But no, never have any, nothing deters me from it. I have down days, and then, my wife, who also works in the business, or one of the guys will just say something. Or funnily enough, I had a LinkedIn message earlier from somebody that just said, just finished the first course in our Managing People series. My goodness, you've nailed it. I'm going to use this stuff immediately. And so even if you have a down day, you get that little bit of feedback, and it's great. And we're lucky that we get that, because as we make digital materials. And so without that feedback loop, it's not like a trainer or a facilitator or even a CEO that stands up in front of the business and they get feedback. So that's the lifeblood for us. But no, always kept on track, never really had any cloudiness. Maybe that's a good thing.
I do have two questions. I know we're getting to the end of this, but I can't refrain from asking you, Pete, what are some of the regrets that you had from these 30 years on the business? And then I'll ask my other question.
Sure. I think the thing I've learned is in the past, we've built too many products and not gone out there and sold them, which sounds crazy, but I'm always looking at the next thing. So what really changed that was building a team. If I'm the accelerator, they're sometimes the brakes. And we've always done really well through word of mouth and referral and things like that. But the big regret is we've built some products and we thought they were great, but maybe they weren't right for the market. So more market research and more focus on marketing and sales to sell those products. Somebody said to me, you've got this showroom full of the most amazing things, and yet there's no windows in the showroom. So that's one of the main regrets, I think. And that's in sort of terms of business. The other one is probably not doing enough upskilling myself earlier on, because I'd have got to where I am now a lot quicker. I was very patient, very driven, and was figuring stuff out along the way, but didn't take a little bit of time out to develop my own awareness skills and things like that. And in the last sort of 4 or 5 years in particular, I've really been able to expose myself to some brilliant people, yourselves included, who've taught me so many things. So I think, to earlier on to spend a little bit more time studying, I regret not doing that. The only flip side to that is without the experience and without the need, which comes back to where we started, the reason I didn't do it was I had all the creative ideas, but I didn't have the business knowledge. So I was what you might call an unconscious incompetent. I didn't know what I didn't know. So that's really what's driven me to go back to it later. So hopefully that answers your first question.
I do love your humble spirit. You're amazing. Well, my second question is probably more less emotional, let's say, but it's more practical, because everyone is talking about artificial intelligence these days. And we are in those rooms and we are in the front line in thinking how artificial intelligence can enhance and augment human abilities and also transform learning. I can see so many applications, especially in the school environment and everything that is upskilling. And so I'm very curious to hear your expert perspective on what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence in your industry.
I think it's going to be fabulous. But like all great things, it's going to be how we use the tools. And it was very interesting. I was listening to, not too long ago, it was the guy that set up DeepMind, which is the part of Google that I'm sure you know does the AI. And he said, do you know what? We shouldn't fear it, but it's the people that learn to use the tools in the best way that are going to have the most success. Now, whether that's, I did look back over history and I thought, when did the slate and chalk start? When did the pencil, the quill pen, the Bic pen, the biro, all this sort of stuff? Then the word processor and the typewriter. And the reality was they're all tools. And if you don't learn to use those tools, then you're not going to be successful. So there's a very basic principle there. Interestingly, my daughter's just finished university. And for a time, the lecturers at the university were telling the students, you must not use AI. And what their fear was that the children, or the students, not children anymore, they're adults, but the students would just say to ChatGPT, write my dissertation for me or write my essay. And the reality was that I sat down with my daughter and I said, let me show you how to use it. And it was a researcher, an ideas generator. And she said, wow, this is going to enable me to do so many things so much more quickly, but I still need my own creativity. So I think if we move that into my world of digital learning, there's some really impressive demos out there at the moment, and they're impressive demos. And you can type a title into one of these AI online learning generators, and it will give you a course back. It will, at the moment, in my opinion, it will be a very bland course. It will be very generic, and it probably won't be really creative and engaging, but it's a good start. So, in fact, we've just started to use avatars. I've been using ChatGPT and Grammarly for ages, but it's the curation and the creativity that is always going to be needed for the foreseeable future, I think. In fact, just to push it a little bit further, as you guys mentioned earlier, I do a podcast, not quite as many episodes and as widespread as yours. But the last episode I did, I thought, and it's on people management skills, which is my particular area of interest. So I interviewed ChatGPT. And as with every interview, as you guys did with me, we have a chat beforehand. And I've done some research on your sort of vision and approach and seen some of the other podcasts. So I spent a good 40 minutes briefing ChatGPT on the format, what I was interested in, checking out what their interests were. And then we did the interview. And I only did the same amount of editing that we would normally do, which is chop bits out. And then I used one of the very latest avatars to voice into video character ChatGPT's responses. And that enabled me to get all of the knowledge that ChatGPT has access to, with a little bit of curation on my part, but it was me that designed the questions, and then use the very latest tech to bring ChatGPT to life into a video person. So I think that it's going to enable our clients to build better content much more quickly, which means they can upskill their people. And that's a great thing. It enables me as a producer and a digital communicator to use these tools, and I'm learning every day to get more out of them and get there more quickly. The downside is going to be if you just press a button and let it generate wherever it thinks. You still need creativity and you still need curation in order to marry up what's being produced to what you really need. People that do that, it's going to be brilliant. So I'm very excited by it.
I love that. I share your optimism. I think it's an incredible new tool in our tool belt, but a tool just sitting on a desk doesn't do anything. We need people to pick it up and do the right things with it. Well, Pete, we're coming up on time, and we always end 99 Humans with a question of a piece of advice that you would give to our audience. And our audience are people leaders. They're managers. They're out there, either entrepreneurs creating their own business or embedded into big companies like Nadia and I are, somewhere in the system of leadership. Thinking on your own journey and some of what we discussed today, what piece of advice would you give to folks who are listening?
I think it's a piece of advice that I was given years ago, and it's quite difficult to always implement it. But of late, we've been doing some work around mental health and well-being and resilience, and we have some courses. We work with a UK-based charity on that. And it's also about talking to them about people who have mental health challenges and things like that. And it's surround yourself with brilliant people. So that's true of business. And we talked about the importance of people earlier. Surround yourself with those positive vibes that people are going to give you. And, you know, when I had the luck of having some time with you, Nadia, my goodness, if you could bottle that positive energy, I'd be a multimillionaire if I could have come away with a few liters of it. But it's the same in terms of looking after yourself in business and in your personal life. Is if you've got people that are dragging you down or injecting a lot of negativity, that's going to drag you down too. So for me, I'm very lucky to work with people who are far better than I am in most areas, which is great. And also in my personal life, I'm very lucky to have a family and a small circle of friends that we enjoy a lot of laughter and a lot of positive stuff. So yeah, my one bit of advice, surround yourself with the best people you can.
Well, don't they say what goes around comes around? I think that's why you're getting all this greatness, Pete. You're such a wonderful vibe person. Well, thank you for joining us today. We've been really loving chatting with you. Where can people find you and how can they connect with you and discover more about all of the great things you're putting into the world?
That would be wonderful. I love building my network. So first port of call, LinkedIn. So if you search for Pete Fullard, Fullard, I'm on LinkedIn, and the company is upskillpeople.com. That's where you'll find me.
Fantastic. We will put all those links in the show notes. Pete, thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing your amazing journey, and good luck to you as you continue this 30-year journey.
It's been my absolute pleasure, both. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
Bye.
Bye. We'll talk to you soon. What a great conversation. Pete is a powerhouse of entrepreneur and positivity.
I really enjoyed him. And that conversation, that breakfast that I had with him, we only had 35 minutes. I could have spent probably 2 hours or a full day chatting with him. It's a great conversationalist. I love them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Nadia. Well, what is the main takeaway for you from that discussion?
Ooh, I had one, and then at the very last minute, I had to change it. I'm sure you know which is the one that I'm about to say. I'm passionate about everything that Pete spoke about, but specifically, that I'm passionate about one thing, which is surrounding yourself with bright individuals.
Yeah.
And I will continue in this quest that I have in life about teaching people how to be bright and great and shining humans so that you can continue attract others to you, because no one wants to spend time with a low vibrational human, let's face it. And the way he framed it is very powerful, because that's applicable to corporations, that's applicable to personal life, that's applicable to business, is literally applicable to any life domain.
Yeah.
So I'm still struggling and wondering on why would people decide not to be bright individuals, because everyone can be bright in their own craft. We don't have to be all equal. Like, what would it take for humanity to just be kind and awesome? So that was absolutely my takeaway that I underlined. And
I
was
love
like,
it.
let's
And
just
I love that you say, why decide? I don't think we're thinking of it as a decision, but it really is. Every day we wake up and we get to decide how we want to show up. Okay, so that's a good one. I think what impressed me most about Pete, and would be my top takeaway, was the clarity of purpose that he has had. And really, I mean, we started just by noticing, wow, you're an entrepreneur who has built your business over 30 years. That's quite unique for a lot of the folks that we've talked to who are maybe in earlier stages of starting a company. And that takes a lot of patient clarity of purpose. But just in all of his answers, you could really see that there was a center clarity of, this is what I was put on this planet to do. And I want to surround myself with other people and build a business and help others experience that. And that's ultimately how he makes his living. But that started before he was making his living doing it. And I think that's just beautiful when you meet people who are living their passion, their purpose. And it's honestly quite rare. So that's something that really was powerful, was how important it is to find that purpose and then to pursue it, because that's what makes you come alive.
It is wonderful. Oh, well, Jeff, it has been amazing seeing you today as well with our incredible human. And everybody, thank you for listening. As you know, we are approaching the end of the 99th humans. And so we hope that you will continue liking our show, follow us on our YouTube channel where you can see all the video interviews. And if you like, give us 5 stars or send us a review. That helps us grow. And I can say that I've been really enjoying this journey with you all for the past 2 years, and especially with you, Jeff.
It's great to see you, Nadia. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you
Bye.
next time.